O'Neill Outside Radio is brought to you by these fine sponsors. The Whitetail Institute of North America, the gold standard for food plots. Realtree, camo hunting, fishing, and land management products. Tough Shed, great storage sheds and custom buildings. Works, power and garden tools. Fisher's Choice, the ideal solution to live bait. CVA, quality muzzleloader since 1971. QDMA, Quality Deer Management Association. Arctic Ice, the most durable, versatile, and effective cooler packs available. And Furminator, the finest food plot implement on the market.
Good morning, boys and girls, from Black Powder headquarters at Three Falls Cabin in the North Georgia Mountains. CVA presents Realtree Radio. Welcome to a brand new, unused Saturday morning. Good morning, boys and girls. This is O'Neill from Three Falls Cabin in the mountains of North Georgia in the Bojangles studio. I got enough of the sponsor stuff in there, didn't I? Welcome to a brand new, unused Saturday morning. Have you missed me? Oh, I know you have. Gone 2 weeks, could do a little travel, good little substitution from Scott Maxim, and I hope you've missed us, but we have so many things to talk about this morning. Wintertime fishing, and the rut is still going on, and we have outdoors to catch up on, and I hope you'll join us. Now, it's my pleasure to tell you this program is brought to you by Works Tools, Realtree Camo, Stripling's General Store, Tough Shed, CVA Muzzleloaders, CVA Cass, Department of Natural Resources, State Parks, and Historic Sites. You can listen to us every Saturday morning, 4 a.m. to 6 a.m. on WSB at 95.5 WSB FM and across the eastern United States at WSB AM 750 and the Sports Broadcast Nation, 112 stations across the country from Seattle to L.A. to Miami to Maine, and you can talk outdoors. No politics. You hear me? No politics, no accusations, no lie. Well, I might tell some lies about the outdoors. You can tell a fisherman is lying when his lips are moving. We exaggerate a little bit, but that's okay. We get to exaggerate for 2 hours here every Saturday morning. We will approach our 29th year pretty soon, and we owe that to you guys for joining us so much. We're going to talk about the remaining deer time. Has the rut begun where you are? Should you take coyotes from the stand? What's the best big bass bait for wintertime? May be surprised at that. And so many things, including your calls at 404-872-0750 or 800-972-8255. Got them? Write them down, remember them, and then call the show this morning. We'd love to speak with you. 12 after the hour, welcome back. We have a lot of calls. We'll get to them in just a moment. But we're talking, this is my favorite time of the year, and it may be yours because fishing is good, the hunting is good, the rut's going on, bird hunting, duck hunting, you name it. It's going on now, so we have a lot of things to discuss. We've got a couple of calls. Let's get right to them. Roadster's on the line here, calling O'Neill Outside. Good morning, Roadster. What do you think?
Happy New Year to my friend.
Yeah, outstanding. Where are you headed? This morning?
I'm headed to the top's down. It's 7 degrees in North Georgia. I'm going to take the BMW. We're going to Clarksville and coming on down, back down 400. And I hope I'll get back to see a football game.
Yeah, there you go. Mighty fine. I hear there's one or two on today.
I think so.
Gail will have me doing chores. What's going on?
Hank the Yank.
Yes.
And you guys introducing the freshwater bonefish fly fishing to North Georgia.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
I got a new fishery I would like to introduce, would be the alligator gar on a fly.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
Have you tried it?
That's what I was going to ask you. Did you run into one every now and then fishing for the freshwater bonefish?
Okay, I have caught gar before, but it's a very special arrangement, a very special way to tackle. See, the alligator gar and the long-nosed gar have absolutely very little flesh around their mouths, so there's nothing for you to get the hook into. They're a fabulous fish to catch, but the way you catch them, I would recommend, is you use a 6 or 8 inch piece of nylon rope, and you put it on a jig, and then you shred it so it's like hair almost, very fine hair. And when the gar surfaces to gulp air, if you'll cast that in front of him, he'll bite it and he'll get it tangled in his teeth. And he can't get it loose, and you will catch him.
Well, you know that the tarpon is an antiquated fish, as the garfish is, and because Hank the Yank was so instrumental in bringing fly fishing to the which is not, we don't use the C word anymore. We use these are primitive fish, and it was so nice that I think Hank could and yourself might be able to bring that fishery to southern waters, because we're looking fish, 100 pounds.
Yes.
And so I think that might be something that
very interesting. Very interesting.
You might want to look at, because I think because the tarpon are a primitive fish with they're hard to hook,
Yes.
So I think that might be a nice fishery, especially on the Tennessee River between Gunnersville and Decatur, Alabama, and up through Athens and Wheeler Dam. There are many fish up there that are wonderful. I mean, huge alligator gar.
Oh, absolutely. They're fun to catch. The thing that you have to be sure to do, and then I got to go, is when you catch them on a string or a rope, you do have to make sure you extricate that rope from his jaws, or he will starve to death.
Happy New Year to Crabapple, Hank the Yank, and your friends.
You bet. Thanks for calling, pal. Now let's talk to let's get Donna Hall up here. Donna, good morning, Donna. It's O'Neill. Welcome to the program.
Hey, O'Neill. Thank you. I've been about to pop to talk to you.
Okay.
Do you remember my telling you about the girl that I gave the second prize package box to?
I
who
do.
Loved. Yes, and she then told me that girls don't fish. Remember this?
Well, I do.
Well, I have a news about her.
Okay.
The whole story is that she's now in high school, and there's a fishing club, and
wonderful.
Boys, no boy will allow her in. And the whole story, because girls don't fish. And so the whole story is that you have to have a boat. And her family does not have one. So I learned all this at the source of all great truths, the beauty shop. And this happened. And her father said she would like to talk to you about this. He said, we decided we might need to turn her interest into a different outdoor direction. And I was reminded of your story about how not everybody can be the winning quarterback or hit the most home runs or whatever. That she has an older adult brother who loved to hunt, and he has introduced her to the pleasures of the outdoors. This 14-year-old who was excluded from joining her fishing club in her high school has now taken the gun safety course. She now has a junior hunting license, I think it is.
Okay.
She has now shot 4 of the allowed 10 deer in the state. She is a major hunter, competitive hunter. when I talked to her, she was explaining to me about how healthy it is, and you don't have to have a boat and so on and so forth. And I said, well, honey, you must have real bragging rights. And she said, oh, no, ma'am, there's no bragging. This is the truth. She said she's not only the only girl in her class to have shot 4 deer, she's the only person in her class.
I would think so. I would think so.
She told me that her grandfather was in rehab and told her all about women of the olden times. She is not only hunting, she is now dragging the carcasses up the hill to her house. She's learning about dressing a deer and preparing a deer. They're eating venison for everything. And I was so impressed. And she just said, in olden times, they didn't waste anything.
Correct.
So this young woman, I was so impressed. And I said, Gracie, I have talked about you on O'Neill Outside. And she said, well, Miss Donna, I have to tell you, I'm going hunting for coyote. You're going to die when you hear this, O'Neill.
Okay,
she's
I'm listening.
going hunting for coyote this weekend. So I said to her father, what do you give a girl like this for Christmas? And he said, it's a challenge, but there is a duck hunting lodge somewhere in northwest Georgia, and that is what this young lady is getting for Christmas.
Oh.
So where one door closes, the Lord opens the window. She is now a major hunter. She's been invited to kill coyote if she's lucky. She says it's harder than deer. And I was so pleased, and I thought I had to share this because of your story, O'Neill, about how your relatives introduced you to the pleasures of
Yes.
the outdoors. And
Yes.
she is so fortunate to have sensitive parents and a wise older brother. And when fishing was socially not acceptable to her, they just turned her toward hunting, and
Wonderful.
she's doing well. She says, she tells me that I should collect venison recipes, that it's healthier than beef. And I said, well, is there anything that you can't use venison for? And she looked at me and she said, Christmas cookies.
Well done. Well, my
So
please pass along my congratulations to her.
Well,
because
I
she
thought you and your people, I encourage people, this is a special young woman. Won't she be a fabulous adult lady? I just think she's going to be an interesting person. But I thought, when a door closes, it takes sensitive people to redirect a person to something else. And
Yes.
fishing is not going to be because girls don't fish.
No.
She's
Evidently,
now
they do. Some of them.
Well,
she has much more. I got to go, but she has much more to talk about after the weekend at school than anyone else
at
does.
duck hunting school. I thought you and your people would be thrilled.
25 after the hour. This is O'Neill. I was thinking it's 25 after the hour Central Time. You got to have fun. 404-872-0750 800-972-8255. O'Neill Outside, the #1 live outdoor-based radio talk show in the country, and we welcome your participation. 25 after the hour. Right now, let's chat with Alan. He's calling from Tallahassee, I think. Good morning, Alan. You're on the radio. Welcome.
Good morning, O'Neill. How are you this morning?
Lovely.
Well, I was Johnny Mathis.
Well, he can, the man's 84 years old, and he entertains hundreds of thousands of people, and his voice sounds just the same.
Well, I'm glad y'all enjoyed it.
Yes.
Have you hunted any?
Am I hunting any?
Yeah.
Not recently. I'm
Yeah,
sorry
you're
to
like
say.
me. I was up home this past weekend, and my cousins them own about 200 acres just north of Sweetwater, Tennessee, and he said, my grandson's come, do you want to go hunting with us? And I said, well, I'll go and sit in the stand with you. Well, about the time we got ready to go, his brother pulled up, and so I said, well, I'll go with him. Well, while I'd been there, he'd show me a bunch of deer, that's on the property, and we'd been out a couple mornings sitting in the stands, and he's got a nice group of deer on the property, and so me and his brother sitting in the stand, and we few doe in the field, and by that time, here come this beautiful deer. And after I got the glasses on it, I saw it was one of those deers his brother said don't shoot. It's a beautiful 3-year-old deer, 3.5-year-old deer. And his brother pulls his gun up, and I said, "What are you doing?" And he says, "I'm fixing to shoot this deer." I said, "Your brother's got that mark not to shoot." He says, "My brother don't tell me what to do." I said, "Man, you shoot that deer, it's going to be 2 killings, that deer, than you." And then I says, "Man, please don't shoot that deer. It's a beautiful deer. He wants it to breed a couple of years, and then in 2 years from now, it's going to be a great deer."
Yes.
You know, some of these people, you can't talk them into, waiting, And so by the time my stomach's churning and I put my hand in my face in my hand, and by the time you hear bam, and I look up and the deer's still standing there, sometimes when you hit them, O'Neill, they'll go into a state of shock for a moment.
Right.
And they just freeze. And, well, that's what I thought had happened. And then all of a sudden, a couple of does bolted, and he bolted behind them. Well, we got down and looked, and there ain't a drop of blood anywhere. And I said, "You sure you shot that deer?" He said, "Yeah, I had the sight right on him." I said, "When's the last time you checked your sights?" He says, "Well, the first of the year." I said, "Man, you better check them again." Mm-hmm. So we got back to back to the house, and been there a little while, and here comes his older brother and his grandson. And he said, "I heard a shot. Did y'all shoot something?" I said, "Well, your brother shot at something." I said, "He shot at one of them deer you had marked not to shoot." He said, "Which one?" I told him, it had a white hair all the way up to its knee on one of its legs. That's how I could tell. My older cousin reached in the back of his pickup truck, pulled out a boat paddle, and chased his brother around that truck. It was hilarious. I was laying there about to fall out. But that's the problem, and I hope you can explain to us once we get off here. How can these, I call them common hunters, they're the ones that show up on the weekend, that's all they do is hunt. They don't do anything to help raise the deer or, help feed the deer. They just show up,
Yeah, I understand,
I call them common hunters, where, most of them
they're not hunters, they're
real,
just shooters.
Yeah, they're shooters. You got that right. But my question is to you, how is it a way to help some of these people actually age a deer, other than us that own property that can see them from the time they were born or, to start to notice them through the years, that could actually just look out and say, well, that's a 3-year-old or a 4-year-old or a 5-year-old deer.
I will tell you how I've always proposed, and you've probably heard me say it before, the more you know, the more you can enjoy, the more productive you can be, whether you're hunting or fishing. The way for this person or any person to understand the white-tailed deer more, better, longer, and be more productive is to join the Quality Deer Management Association, because the information they provide about the white-tailed deer, they are scientists. They're not just a couple of guys hanging around the campfire gossiping. You will know more and enjoy it more if you join the Quality Deer Management Association. For instance, here's something very simple that you can tell the people at camp. Those big wide antlers that he wanted to pass along to the offspring, half of the genetics to that next offspring comes from the doe, not just the buck.
He's got certain doe he don't want shot either. He wants them to breed a couple of years.
And there's nothing wrong with that. You can put in food plots. You can add mineral blocks. You can feed them with corn, with grain. You can do all of those things, and they all help. But the number one thing that grows the biggest antler, ready?
Yep.
Age.
Oh, yeah. I agree with that 100%.
It's age, not what he eats.
I don't shoot anything under 5.5 years old.
Good for you.
It's got to be at least 5.5 years old before I even think about it.
That's right. If you are a trophy hunter, then the deer needs to be 4, 5, or 6 years old. then he starts to decline. But age is the number one thing that grows big antlers, other than you hunting in Wisconsin instead of South Georgia. There's a big difference in those deer.
And then the last thing before we get off here, you said about fishing, what are you throwing in the fall? I've been throwing a big crankbait, and down here, of course, a lot of these lakes are shallow. You can't throw something that's, that'll dive too deep unless you find these pockets. But I've been throwing a big crankbait, and it seems to do really well.
Okay,
So
I'm gonna talk about that later, but I'm gonna tell you before I sign off. To O'Neill, to me, the number one big bass bait for the wintertime waters is a crawfish imitation.
I can see that.
Jig,
I agree. I agree with that 100%. I agree with that.
And people don't do it. People don't use it.
Well, the great bait I've been throwing is in a kind of a crawfish color.
There you are. They probably think that's what it is.
And got
they
some
probably
tan
think
in it,
that's what it is.
Well, I'm glad.
I'm going to talk about that for a few minutes. Before we get to our next caller. Hey, thanks for calling, Alan. It's always a pleasure.
It's always a pleasure to talk to you. I hope Miss Gail's doing fine.
She's doing wonderful. She's asleep right now upstairs.
Oh, I know that.
I'll see you later, pal.
You have a good holiday, buddy.
You too. See you later. There we go.
Right.
Let me refresh my screen here, and we'll get to the next. There we go. There goes Alan. Up, almost. There we are. 404-872-0750, 800-972-8255. Let me discuss something with you for a moment. Then I want to talk to Milton. He's coming up when we get back. The number one big bass bait in the fall of the year and into the winter is crawfish imitation. The number one brand that I like is what's called a mop jig. It has real long, soft rubber fibers off of it, and it has two compartments along the side of the jig that have weights or clicks in them. When crawfish feed, when they move, they make a clicking sound. Now, why is the crawfish a big bass bait in the wintertime? Because that's the only time, basically, that is the main food for the largemouth and the spotted bass, other than live bait being from time to time some shad. But you see, in the wintertime, the small bass, which is a food also, and the shad and the brim all are in deep hiding. At those water temperatures, they don't range. They don't range around. They don't get into the shallow waters, but the bass is still hungry. And if you use a hair jig or a rubber jig, I prefer the mop jig, you will get bit more by big bass. And I learned that from Davey Hite, H-I-T-E, a BASS Angler of the Year, BASS Classic Champion, and so on. If you will give that a try in reservoirs, ponds, and rivers especially, I guarantee you will get more bites from big bass using a mop jig or a jig imitation. Now, last one thing about that. When I make a recommendation to you, when I tell you something like that, and I suggest that you try something, then the way for you to be proficient with that bait, with that category of bait, like Alan with his crankbaits, that's not something for you to say on your next trip. That rascal O'Neill said something about a mop jig. I think I'll try it for an hour. No. You'll try it for a day or two to be proficient and understand it. Toss it into the weeds, toss it into the standing tree, toss it into the blowdown, and get it in there and leave it in there, because the crawfish feeds on the algae bloom along the limbs of the vegetation. That's a tip from Davey Height. This is O'Neill. We'll be back. 40 minutes after. Welcome back, everyone. This is O'Neill with O'Neill Outside. Here's a special treat for a Saturday morning. We haven't talked to him in quite a while. Let's chat with Milton. Good morning, Milton. You're on the air. Welcome.
O'Neill?
Yes, sir.
Milton Crabapple.
Yes, sir. Okay.
How you doing this morning?
I'm doing just fine. I'm still full from the big Thanksgiving dinner. How about you?
Well, I am too. I know what you mean. They said you was going to see Johnny Mathis.
Yes, we were in Branson, Missouri for a concert there and enjoyed it very much.
Yeah, he's still on that dairy?
No, I think that's a different Mathis family, I think.
Well, somebody told me he sold the dairy and went into the singing business. I didn't know.
Right. Yeah, the Mathis.
It was him or not.
That's right. That's a different one, but I don't blame you for thinking that.
You know, a lot of football games are going on
They sure
today.
are.
I don't know whether you watch them or not, but I like to sometimes, especially them college players.
Yes.
You know, I had a third cousin one time that was the best football player around.
Really?
He was the fastest runner as I ever seen.
Wow.
Yes, sir. He was a punt return specialist. His name was White Shoes Crabapple.
I see. Okay.
And I'm telling you something. He was the fastest punt returner that there's ever been, as far as I know.
No kidding.
He was so good that sometimes when he returned a punt, they'd call a foul on him for roughing the kicker.
Oh.
Yes, sir. I mean, he could move.
I believe that.
Yes, sir. But anyhow, I'm going to watch some games today, I reckon.
Okay, well, good for you.
Sit back. I went hunting yesterday, so it was supposed to rain today, so me and Dude decided to stay in and watch a little football.
Okay, good for you. Well, how was the hunt yesterday?
Well, I didn't didn't even see a deer, but I had my sights, I had my crosshairs on a coyote, and he went behind something and disappeared right as I was about to pull the trigger, so I didn't get to finish him off. I wish I could have.
Yes, that's right. They're slick, man. They are slick. That's a really good hunting target for after the deer season, coyote hunting. That's really good.
You know, I don't know if you ever noticed or not. Now, you observe things lots of times in the woods, but if you see a coyote, it don't matter what he's doing. It don't matter if he's running. It don't matter if he's just sniffing around out in the field or slipping across the road or coming down a trail. It don't matter what he's doing. Anytime you see him, he looks like he's up to no good.
Yes.
You just got a look about him. It says he's up to something no good.
That's right. He has that reputation, and he is really smart.
He sure is. Well, I'll tell you something. I did see in the woods now, for those that don't realize it, but the prime breeding season here in North Georgia for squirrels is coming up. It's right on us.
Okay.
And when you're sitting out there, if you see a female squirrel and she's gone into season, you may see 6 or 8 or more male squirrels chasing her.
I see.
I've seen as many as 12 of them in one single tree after 1 or 2 females.
No,
and they'll stay there for a long time just running around and around that tree chasing that female, and they don't pay no attention to what's going on around them. You can slip up on them, and you can kill a sack full of them at one time.
That's right. How long, let me ask you a question. How long does a gray squirrel in the southeast, a southeastern gray squirrel, how long do they live?
Well, usually about a year.
I see.
You know, they could live longer if they didn't get a disease or something, didn't catch them and eat them up, you know. But out in the wild, most small game animals like that, squirrels, rabbits, quail, they don't, you know, years about as long as they can make it.
Yeah, I see.
That's how come they have so many young'uns.
Yeah, they do. So how many is in a litter of gray squirrels probably at a time?
Well, anywhere from 2 to 4 usually.
Oh, okay.
Depending on the season. But yeah, I'm saying as many as 4. You know, we used to climb up in the trees and in about the middle end of February, climb up in the trees when I was little, and we'd catch them babies out of there. Now, they make good pets. Of course, you're not supposed to keep them.
I see.
But we'd sell them for $2 a piece to all our friends. Everybody had pet squirrels back then.
Well, that's good. You're an enterprising person.
I had a business, Crabapple Squirrel Distributors. Yes, sir.
I bet you were one of a kind, too.
But I'll tell you something, folks sure do miss out on it nowadays. You know, they and I know I make a lot of people mad when I say it, but they take a young'un out there when they ain't even really big enough to tote their own rifle to the shooting house and get them all propped up in there and help them hold it and help them aim it and everything and get them a deer. And, you know, and that's how they're introduced to hunting. They miss out on all that small game hunting with them squirrels and out there in the woods. And, you know, nowadays, there's folks that grow up and they kill deer every year, and they've been hunting them for years and years, and they grow up and they don't know one goddamn thing about woodsmanship.
Correct.
No, sir. They don't know how to get out there and look for trails and figure out where the areas are, and they're just waiting for that deer to step out onto the food plot so they can plug him. That's really what I call deer harvesting now. I ain't saying there's nothing wrong with it, but if you want to harvest a deer, but when you get down in the bushes with him and get to looking around and figure out how to get him down there where he is, now you got to learn some woodmanship to be able to do that.
Well, you and I have talked about that before, how we recommend, and I do too, for youngsters, they should start out squirrel hunting.
I believe they should, and I believe they ought to start out shooting with open sights, too.
I agree with that, and they get to walk in the woods. It's a social occasion. They get to see a lot of squirrels. They get a lot of shots, and they can harvest a lot of squirrels. It's quite frankly, to me, deer hunting, quite frankly, is a bore.
It is a bore, yes, sir.
Because the way it's come transformed in the last few years, you take a four-wheeler and drive it close to the stand, then you get up in the tower stand and you shoot something over a food plot. That is not hunting, not to me.
Then you drive the four-wheeler out there and throw him in the back of it and drive him back, transfer him over into the pickup truck and drive him to the butcher without ever getting your hands dirty. You know, I believe, too, if you shoot one, you ought to be able to field dress him and skin him out and process him up. That's just part of the whole thing to me.
That is correct. That is the full hunt.
That's true. You got to, that stuff, there's a lot that goes into it before it goes into your mouth.
Absolutely.
Yes, sir. But anyhow.
Well, Milton, I'm glad you called,
cool
sir.
Weather coming up, too, it looks like. Them summer times get me down when it gets hot.
Yeah.
Sap all my energy, we ain't got air conditioning like a lot of folks.
Oh, boy.
When it gets hot, we just open the windows and shut that ovulating fan up by the window where it can blow that air around. It don't do much to cool you off.
Well, those ovulating fans are, that helps a little.
It sure does.
Yeah.
Well, anyhow, I just wanted to touch in with you this morning.
Well, I appreciate you calling. We always have a great discussion, and the audience enjoys it, I'm sure.
Stop by the jail. We'll play some checkers.
I'll do that, too. I better practice. I'll see you soon, my good friend.
Yes, sir.
You betcha. There we go. There goes Milton. Okay, let's see. It's 4:48. We've got time for this one. Let's talk to Bobby. He's calling. Bobby is calling from Dallas, Texas. Good morning, Bobby. You're on the radio. Welcome to the show.
Good morning. How are you this morning, O'Neill?
Fantastic. How about you, sir?
I'm headed to the duck blind, so things could be worse.
Ooh, boy. What's the
worse.
Well, what's the flight today? Mallards, pintails? What's going on?
Well, so far this season, this is the last weekend coming into the break, so it'll kick back up next weekend. But it's been really good. Probably, last year was a horrible year for the migration. And this year, from the first day on, it's really been strong hunting. I mean, quick limits, a lot of mixed bags, everything from mallards to pintails, a lot of teal, widgeon, gadwall. It's been real good this year. Been real good.
All right, Bobby, let me ask you a question which will help the audience that haven't exposed this before. What is it primarily that allows you to know when the flight is occurring? You understand my question?
Yeah. It really comes down to, we got a little group of us. There's 4 of us, and we've got a spot that we've been hunting now for about 20 years, and we've got all of us live in different parts of town, and we'll know by just when you see ducks start to appear on certain little ponds as you're just driving around the neighborhood or out in the country. That's a lot of times that's how we'll know they're starting to come down.
I see.
And usually for us, the ducks really don't start moving down until this time of year. But from opening day on, we've just been covered up. All that cold weather up north and those cold snaps early. I mean, down here we had 2 freezes coming into October, and last year we didn't have a freeze until Christmas time last year.
Right.
So makes a big difference.
Right. Now, that's primarily what I was looking for from you, is the weather drives them south. The ponds are frozen. They don't have anything to eat, so they fly south so they can get to open water.
Yeah, if it's cold, for us, where I am here in Texas, if it's cold in Nebraska and Kansas and Oklahoma, it's going to force the birds down here. And,
yes.
That's usually the best sign for us is when you get really good western cold fronts coming down those prairies. We really do get the bird movement.
Oh boy! What do you? What shotgun do you guys use? Over and unders, automatics, long barrels. What do you use?
All of us shoot. Most all of us shoot. I shoot a Beretta A300, and we shoot automatics. Most of us. My son for years shot a Benelli pump, but when he was young, but now he shoots a Benelli A300 as well. I mean a Beretta A300, but mostly automatics. We use aftermarket choke tubes. As a matter of fact, we use kicks, which are made right down there in Georgia.
Yes.
In Sylvania, Georgia, as a matter of fact. But we use a lot of those tubes with the steel shot, and the tube varies. Right now we're shooting just not much over open cylinder because they've been coming in so tight and so close.
Oh boy! Well, I know you're along the Mississippi Flyway there. I guess you got a great number of ducks. How long does it take? I got to go in a minute here, but how long does it take you guys when you get out there to get a limit?
Well, my son and I went out the other morning, and we were done in 13 minutes.
That's great.
Yeah, it was good.
Or do you put? I got the time for this. Do you put out permanent decoys?
No, sir, I do not.
All right,
I do not. I don't believe that. I think that they're just like any other animal. They get used to what they see, and I believe in just this year we've rarely put out more than a dozen decoys. And if it's slow wind and the wind's not moving, we'll just put a couple wobblers out there to put some motion in it. But when the ducks are coming in thick and they're migrating and they're wanting in a spot, the best thing to do is, I'm a minimalist when it comes to that. I don't, the more they have to look at, the more they have to find wrong with it.
That's right. Well, I know it's the times that I've been, it's really exciting when they cup their wings and put their feet down.
Oh yeah. And
it's heart-pounding action.
One out. That's right.
You bet. Bobby, I'm glad you called. Call us more often throughout the duck season and let us know what goes on.
I'll do that. Thanks for taking my call.
You bet. I'll see you soon. There we go.
All
this
right.
is O'Neill outside, and we'll be back. Welcome to a brand new unused Saturday morning. Welcome, everyone. This is O'Neill with the second hour of O'Neill Outside, Saturday mornings 4 a.m. to 6 a.m. Eastern Time, and we hope that you'll join us. The way for you to do that is to telephone 404-872-0750 in the Atlanta area and across the country on the SB Nation Network and WSB. The number is 800-972-825 from Seattle to L.A., to Maine to South Florida, the SB Nation and O'Neill Outside. So welcome to the program, everyone. We've been discussing squirrel hunting and hog hunting, coyote hunting, the best big bass bait, and we've had lots of fun, and we hope that you'll join us further. It's my pleasure to invite you to watch O'Neill Outside television, various Fox networks, the Pursuit Channel, YouTube, Waypoint TV, and my goodness, just channels everywhere. Nobody watches just traditional television anymore, but you can watch all of O'Neill Outside at o'neilloutside.com. Click right there on the home page, and various prizes and various ways for you to be in touch. And of course, you can write us there at the guest book, and we always entertain and answer your questions, by golly. And so give it a try, and you can see all of the television shows there for years and years and years, and ones without commercials, for crying out loud. So the program is brought to you every week by Works Tools, Realtree Camos, Stripling's General Store, The Tough Shed, CVA Muzzleloaders, CVA Cask, Centerfire, Snellville Heating and Air, and Historic Sites, and the new Stealth Elite earbuds, which you can get only at Kickstarter.com. Protect your ears. If you're a cycler, drive heavy equipment, a shooter at the range, protect your ears with the Stealth Elite earbuds, and it's truly worthwhile. All right, first break coming up, then we have quite a few recommendations. This is O'Neill Outside. We invite your calls, 404-872-0750 or 800-972-8255. We discussed plenty of things today. Squirrel hunting and the best big bass bait in the fall of the year, the wintertime, anytime the water temperature is under 62, your best big bass bait is a crawfish imitation. And I think you should give it a try. I promise you're going. And I was taught this by someone who had won the Bassmasters Classic and was the Bass Angler of the Year. His name is Davey Height, and he taught me how to do that and when to use it and what temperatures, and I learned quite a bit, and it ended up being a big bass bait. Okay, let's chat for a minute about, because I was with someone in the last couple of weeks, they went to a lot of effort and time and travel, and they went to a grand place to hunt, and they missed. Well, of course, my comment was that if you've never missed as a deer hunter, you just hadn't gone enough yet. You will one day miss for whatever reason. But I have some recommendations, not from my little brain, but from reading and researching and from rifle and gun experts. So here are some of my recommendations as for you to pay attention and reduce the number of times that you miss. Make you a better shot. Okay, number one. You're in the stand, ground blind, tower stand, whatever the case might be, and you get there. You've got your water bottles out and your all of your gear out. But before I do that, okay, before I get to that, I'm going to interrupt myself because I know he's on the way to the lake, and I want to hear from him. Let's talk to Mac. Mac is on his way fishing, I'll bet you. Am I correct?
Good morning, O'Neill. You're correct. How are you doing?
That's what I figured. I'm doing fine, sir. Thank you very much. Did you have a nice Thanksgiving with your family?
I most certainly did. I had both my girls home from school. We rarely have them together at the same time anymore, and we had a big time. I got to tell you a quick story, too. Thursday just happened to be my birthday this year. So for my birthday, they said, well, Dad, we're going to do something special. One of them mentioned the word epic, and I should have known right then that I should have bailed out. But dress light, eat a light breakfast, dress for outdoor activity. So I figured maybe we're going hiking. We like to do that. Well, they had registered me for a road race, a 13 or a half marathon. So for my birthday Thursday morning, with both my kids, I got up, and they didn't tell me it was a half marathon until we got there. So old Matt got up and ran 13 miles Thursday morning. And so we've had, it was epic. Yeah, how about that?
Yeah, I would bet.
Yeah, it was. So, with great memory, and it's one I'll cherish for a long time. And on another note, too, O'Neill, while I'm thinking about it, a couple weeks ago, you did your hunting show with DNR. And
yes.
For one Saturday, I was like everybody else. I got in the truck, drove to the lake, and listened to it. That was a really good show. Those guys are really, really informative. So I just wanted hats off to you and them. That was an excellent show, I thought. So
thank you very, very much. They look forward to it, and so do we. It's really great. Like when I talk with you, and especially with people like that, it's really great to talk to someone who really understands the question.
Well, I could sense their passion and their dedication, and that's the case with most of our DNR people, whether it's hunting, fisheries, parks. I mean, those people they're avid outdoorsmen, and they enable us to be the same. So hats off to them. Good job.
Correct.
No question.
So what's going on at the lake? Are you catching some big ones, and what would you tell people to do over the next few weeks?
Fishing's really good. December's one of my favorite months. Always has been. I think fish are really getting ready for winter, and we're seeing that now. And the water's actually warmer for this calendar date than what would be norm. A few degrees warmer, and the fish are really active. You got a lot of shallow fish. If you're going striper fishing, the umbrella rig bite is just about silly right now. Either pulling the big rigs or the mini max. Yeah, it's really good. There's also a live bait bite. You may see some schooling fish. That's kind of subsided. That's kind of slowed down the last couple of weeks, but still enough that I would have something tied on and being prepared for it, particularly with weather pushing in on us. But trolling the big rigs on the big motor or stealth trolling the minis, either one's just off the chain. If you're going bass fishing, they're really jacked up. The only problem I see with bass fishing is because the water is in the upper 50s. You got deep fish and shallow fish. You got a lot of places to choose from, a lot of patterns to choose from. And other than them being scattered and using a big part of the lake, opening up that huge range, if you can find them, they'll bite. So kind of you got to pick your poison. But there's guys catching them relatively shallow, and you got guys out here catching them with spoons and 30 to 45, 50 feet, which that bite seems to be really ramping up as well. But bass fishing overall is very good. And I'm hearing the same. This is, of course, based on my experience on Lanier the last few weeks, but I'm getting the same feedback from lakes all over the southeast. So it's a good weekend to fish.
That was my next point to be made, that the same things that you're telling me right now apply to northern Alabama and East Tennessee, western North and South Carolina, and maybe even into Virginia.
No question. I'm getting feedback from some guys on Smith Mountain Lake up in Virginia. Doing really, really well. And I've got a colleague over on Lake Anna in Virginia, Chris McConnor, and he says the spoon bite's just off the chain up there. So, we see the same thing. Yeah, he's killing them. So,
people don't use enough, for bass fishing, people don't use spoons enough.
I think not. And you know what we do? And when I say we, I'm going to include myself in this group as well. We tend to think of it, too, as just a cold wintertime bait. I'm convinced, and I do think it's best in the fall and winter, but if you can get your boat on top of a fish and sit on him, he's susceptible to a spoon. So It goes into spring and even the summer. So think of it more as it's a vertical presentation. This time of year, I think it's a primary thing. If you get into the summer or the spring, it's more of a secondary thing. But sometimes if you got fish, maybe you catch them with a worm, they're under the boat, you catch 4 or 5 and they quit. A spoon makes a really good change-up. We don't, but to sum it up, we do not use them diligently enough. It's a really good way to catch a bunch of fish. I've heard you relay some stories about catching them, and you catch them quick.
I know. When during my tournament days, and I'm bragging, I was at Lake Martin about the last week of October, and in 3 days I caught 270 largemouth.
With a spoon, and I don't know of a faster way to catch them when it's on, and it happens on almost every lake. And gosh, I was going to say the southeast, but its reach is way further than that. So keep a box full of them, and learn how to use it, because and it's fun. It's a fun way to catch fish, and it catches everything.
Oh yes, absolutely. Spotted bass, largemouth, stripers, anything and everything, and it's so very seldom, quite frankly, that you use, now you do because you use downriggers, but it's so very seldom that a fisherman will get his bait down to 45 and 50 feet. You can't use crankbait. Yeah.
No.
So there you are.
Yeah,
Mac,
the bottom
we
is
always
all
learn
indication.
something from your call, sir. We always do, and I thank you for that. And good luck to you today. How many people do you have in the boat with you today?
Not sure yet. We'll
No.
see. Yeah, we're not sure. We'll find out when we get to it.
Okay.
It's all good, though, man. We're going to load it up with bait. Doesn't matter. Come on.
Okay. Half marathon. Congratulations.
Yeah, it was. Well, like I said, one of them said epic. Man, I should have known, but it was. But it was
yeah.
epic because it's the best memory ever. I'll never forget.
I did a marathon yesterday, but it was in my Tundra.
It's okay, too. They're all good.
All right, I'll see you, pal.
All right, have a good weekend.
You too. There you go. All right. We always learn something when Matt gives us a call. We have an avenue for exchange. So if you live in the Carolinas, East Tennessee, Northern Alabama, all over the Southeast, don't forget to use a spoon and fish the water column from 3 feet to 50 feet. It's a great time of the year. This is O'Neill, 404-872-0750, 800-972-8255. Radio prize package when we return, I promise.
With Arctic ice in your cooler, the possibilities are endless. Built in the USA, built to last. Never buy ice again. Arctic Ice. No hassle, no mess. Colder than the rest.
At Realtree, we understand your passion for the outdoors and the connection you have with nature. We also know that it doesn't come and go with the hunting seasons.
I love to hunt just as much as I love to fish.
That's why we are proud to introduce Realtree Fishing. From the woods to the water, Realtree has you covered.
The Furminator RT by Renews Outdoor Equipment combines a rugged gear-driven tiller with the proven seed delivery and cultipacking systems that made the Furminator famous. The RT heavy-duty tiller allows true one-pass planting in most soil types like never before. An added feature is the tiller and seeder can be separated and used independently, making the RT perfect for a small garden at home or a large field food plot. The Furminator RT by Renews Outdoor Equipment.
At CVA, making better guns is what we're all about. It's no different with our first ever bolt-action centerfire, the Cascade. In fact, we promise that our new Cascade has every rifle in its class beat by a long shot. And we're backing it up with a money-back guarantee. The CVA Cascade. It really is just a better gun. We promise.
Be ready to go fishing anytime with Fisher's Choice canned baits. Yes, canned baits. Real shrimp, worms, and crickets. Preserved and packaged in a way for you to keep and use whenever you want to go fishing. They stay soft and moist. They look and feel like live bait. Panfish just love them. Unopened, they have a 5-year shelf life, 2 weeks after they're opened.
Order online at TimbuktuOutdoors.com.
If you think a tin shed can hold up like a tough shed, you're in for a big surprise.
After 38 years, our buildings speak for themselves. Dream, design, and build at toughshed.com.
Welcome back. 404-872-0750, 800-972-8255. All the way all over the country on the SB Nation, from Maine to Florida to, well, all over, and WSB 95.5 FM and 750 AM. So join us if you will. Hank the Yank is on the line, but here's an opportunity for you to answer a question and you will receive the radio prize package, which consists of 1 week, no charge at the gun range at Appalachian Gun and Range, a Bojangles gift card, great biscuits, an Angler magazine, the DNR Reg magazine, a can of Fisher's Choice baits, a selection of True Turn and Roadrunner fishing tackle, baits that is, a grocery coupon so that you can get some Swaggerty's sausage where they stock that, which is almost everywhere. And one of the things that once you get used to it, you won't buy any more bag ice again, and that is an Arctic ice pack. That's the prize package. The telephone numbers you know. The rules are you cannot have won a prize package, let's say in the last 6 months, and number 2, you have to be 18 years old or older. The question is the following. Years ago, a very fabulous entertainer died. A tragic death. Fabulous entertainer. But she was honored in ways that I did not agree with, and it made me mad. It made me upset, and Gail and I came up with the Medal of Honor tribute. People's names that you never heard of. What was the entertainer's name who perished that caused us to start the Medal of Honor tribute? Call the telephone numbers 404-872-075800, 972-8255. The first correct answer will win the radio prize package. Right now, oh, what a treat. Hank the Yank. What do you say, my good friend?
Hey, good morning.
Good
How are
morning
you?
to you, sir. Lovely.
Well, what a Thanksgiving I had.
What? Tell me.
I was in the emergency room.
Oh, yeah?
Mac,
Why?
Yeah, Mac invited me to run a half marathon.
Oh.
Oh, boy.
Oh, my goodness.
That's
I
that
can't
Mac
imagine.
Far.
I can't imagine. I was, I've never done anything like that. I don't know what that would be like.
It's tough. It's tough stuff. My wife has run 8 marathons.
Oh my goodness!
So she's a runner. Mac's a runner. I'm a cheerer. I get on the sidelines, and as they come running down the street, I'm holding the sign up. You know that says.
What does the sign say?
Run, Tina, run. Something like that. You know,
Okay.
Just supporting the missus.
There you go. I like that. It's a mutual effort.
That's right. It's a team. The Cowan team.
There
So,
you go.
We're a cooking team too. She cooks it, I eat it.
There you go. That's it's got to be done.
That's right. There has to be somebody on the other side of the table. So
You betcha.
Anyway, so let me tell you what's going on. I got a couple things to tell you here. I mean, I listened to Mac's report, and he's having a grand time with the fish. And unfortunately for the fly rodder on the lake right now, the fishing has been subpar. I am in the midst of canceling trips just because the fish are so deep and scattered. There is absolutely no topwater bite on the lake, nor has there been for the last 2 weeks at all.
Okay. All right.
And so the fish are just running deep, which is why all the things Mac told you guys to do earlier is going to work for you guys, but not for the fly rodder. So
let me comment.
Yeah, go ahead.
I see his website every week, and he takes photos, many photos, and boy, oh boy, does that umbrella rig catch the stripers.
It does. And, what's really interesting is my brethren of fly fishermen have all learned over the years that when guys are doing really well on the umbrella rig, they know that the lake, generally speaking, is not fishing well for the fly rodder because umbrella rigs work best when the fish are scattered about and not kind of grouped up in any one pattern. It's probably the best pattern or the best lure to use when you just simply can't find the fish in one particular area or another, where they're just scattered about for whatever reason. The water temperature is a little warmer than it's been over the years, and we just need it to cool off. The lake, as far as the numbers of fish, the lake is great. We have been catching up until the last 2 weeks. We've got our size back on Lanier. I had a gentleman out a couple of weeks ago before the bite kind of died for us, and we got a striper near 20 pounds. And Clay Cunningham also was another guide on the lake, brought one up on an artificial about 20 pounds. So we've got our size back. Those gill maggots that we had in the fish over the last 2 years are gone. The lake is healthy. We're just in a time frame where, for the fly rodder, if you just simply have to catch fish on the lake, you're better off going at night because the bomber bite is on fire. I got a call about a week ago from your buddy Ken Sturdivant, who told me that he has been killing the fish on sand on the bombers at night. So if you're a fly rodder, you can do the same thing, but it means fishing in the dark. The daytime fishing, unfortunately for us, if you want to fish during the daytime, you need to go to the trout streams because the trout streams are fishing really, really well. The late harvest started for us about 3 weeks ago, and the DNR stocked all the late harvest streams. We've got 5 of them here in Georgia, which are all catch and release streams. And by the way, I just saw on one of the social media sites that our DNR shocked up 2 brown trout on the Chattahoochee River between Buford Dam and Morgan Falls Dam this past week. An 18-pound brown trout and a 13-pound brown trout. Now, what makes that so significant, O'Neill, is that we have not had brown trout stocked in the Chattahoochee River in over 16 years. So these are stream-born fish, which makes them near wild. And to think that we have a wild brown trout fishery this far south is remarkable for trout anglers around the country to know they can come to Georgia and nearly just north of downtown Atlanta. We have a wild brown trout fishery today that's self-sustaining. It's really remarkable and just goes back to the fellas that you had on the show last week, just 2 weeks ago, talking about, the DNR and what they do for all of us, whether it's hunting or fishing. So that's the report I was going to give you today.
That's good. Wonderful. Well done. One more question, though. An 18-pound brown in that category, what's going to be the length of that fish?
Boy, that's a good question. I'm going to say that fish is probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 34 inches, 35 inches.
Wow.
It was a stud. That fish was listen, the 13-pounder was a stud. But it's really, like I said, it's remarkable what goes on down here in the Chattahoochee River that used to be known as one of the most 100 endangered rivers in the United States and no more. So, and that's it.
Management.
Pal.
Management.
That's right.
Have a great weekend. Go Dogs,
Go Dogs.
right?
Go Dogs.
All right, my friend. I'll see you soon. There we go. And there we go. I disconnected correctly. 34 after the hour. Let's see, Corey, do we have any answers to our question? I'm talking to W. Oh. Okay, well, we do have an answer to the question. And if they do not call back, I will give you the answer to that question. Is that okay, Corey? And the answer to that... Okay, well, I'm going to tell the audience then, now, that since we do have someone who already won. Okay, let's see if we can get to that, because I want it to be answered on... all right. Randy, you're on the air. I've only got a couple of minutes here.
Yes, sir.
Give us the answer to our question.
Whitney Houston.
Whitney Houston is correct. Thank you very, very much. You won quite a prize package, and we'll take a couple of weeks to get it to you, and I'll put you back on hold so we can make sure that you have the proper address and so on.
Okay.
How did you, this is important, how did you know that?
Because I wait for every 4 o'clock every Saturday morning, I listen to this station.
There you go. That's the point. You get the answer from listening to the show.
Yep.
There you go. Thank you for your participation, Randy.
Okay.
You bet. There you go. He won Randy won a prize package. That was worthwhile. 35:36 after the hour almost. This is O'Neill with O'Neill Outside. 404-872-0750, 800-972-8255. I've got something here. Now, we're not going to go through them all. I'm not going to have time. One of the things that makes you miss when you're deer hunting is that you don't stay behind the gun. Nail your cheek to the stock, take your shot, and pause. Maybe for a sec. Don't be too quick to jump up and raise your head to see if you hit the deer. If you're properly sighted and you have that confidence and you've done all the preparation, you shouldn't even have to look to see if you shot the deer. But if you don't watch it, it'll be a habit that you look up quickly right after the shot. And that sometimes makes you what's called jumping the scope and makes you miss. Keep that in mind. We'll do some more of those in a few minutes. This is Neil, and we'll be back.
Be ready to go fishing anytime with Fisher's Choice canned baits. Yes, canned baits. Real shrimp, worms, and crickets. Preserved and packaged in a way for you to keep and use whenever you want to go fishing. They stay soft and moist. They look and feel like live bait. Panfish just love them. Unopened, they have a 5-year shelf life, 2 weeks after they're opened.
Order online at TimbuktuOutdoors.com.
If you think a tin shed can hold up like a tough shed, you're in for a big surprise.
After 38 years, our buildings speak for themselves. Dream, design, and build at ToughShed.com.
At Realtree, we understand your passion for the outdoors and the connection you have with nature. We also know that it doesn't come and go with the hunting seasons.
I love to hunt just as much as I love to fish.
That's why we are proud to introduce Realtree Fishing. From the woods to the water, Realtree has you covered.
The Furminator RT by Renews Outdoor Equipment combines a rugged gear-driven tiller with the proven seed delivery and cultipacking systems that made the Furminator famous. The RT heavy-duty tiller allows true one-pass planting in most soil types like never before. An added feature is the tiller and seeder can be separated and used independently, making the RT perfect for a small garden at home or a large field food plot. The Furminator RT by Renews Outdoor Equipment.
At CVA, making better guns is what we're all about. It's no different with our first ever bolt-action centerfire, the Cascade. In fact, we promise that our new Cascade has every rifle in its class beat by a long shot. And we're backing it up with a money-back guarantee. The CVA Cascade. It really is just a better gun. We promise.
At the Whitetail Institute, there's a lot of things we could talk about, like pioneering the food plot industry, our extensive research, or our customer success and the world and state records we've helped produce. But what we don't talk enough about is our customer service, and like our product line, is by far the best in the business. We have the expertise to help you improve the quality of your deer and your deer hunting. So contact us today. The call and the consultation are free. We look forward to the opportunity to earn your business.
404-872-0750, 800-972-8255. This is O'Neill with O'Neill Outside. Saturday mornings, 4 a.m. to 6 a.m. Eastern Time, covering the United States, the #1 live outdoor-based radio talk show in the country, and I thank you for your participation. We get get to talk about so many things this time of year because it's hunting season, it's deer season, it's squirrel season, it's duck season, and we've touched on a lot of those things today. And it gave me an opportunity to mention some things that contribute to maybe the fact that you missed the last time you went hunting. I hunted with somebody a couple of weeks ago, and they had a deer in their sights, and they missed. And I don't know why they did. Number one, if you never miss while you're deer hunting, you just hadn't been enough times, because it will occur. But we're talking about why you miss. One of the things I said earlier was that you need to look at the landscape when you're positioned through the scope, not just your binoculars. Because when you put the gun up, it looks different. It's different looking through the scope than it is with your binoculars. Look through the scope. Number two, difficult positioning. Wherever it is, whatever the blind is, using your rifle, look through the scope to the left, to the right, distance, short, so that you have seen it before. You don't look through the scope all of a sudden and you can't find the deer. Or it looks different. Is that the same deer? Because I'll tell you, and I'll admit to you, I was in Texas. Plenty of deer, oh my goodness. And I did not do that. And with the camera in the blind and the guide behind me, I shot the wrong deer. Okay, another reason that you may miss that you don't stay behind the gun. Don't pop up so soon. If you're confident, if you're sighted in, then you don't have to pop up. You can look through the scope. Lousy trigger control. The trigger should be pulled softly. You exhale. It's tough, I know. You probably got buck fever. Exhale and pull the trigger softly. If you jerk the trigger, you jerk the gun. You jerk the rifle. I know I went to Appalachian Gun and Range to sight in my new Cascade, the 6.5 Creedmoor. After 2 shots that were 3 inches high, I adjusted it down, then hunted with it later. And a lady that we were doing a show, and later we let her sight it in. So her sight in was different than mine. It's your personal sight in. It's your personal shot. And after 2 shots at 150 yards, she was bullseye. Bullseye and bullseye. But she wasn't afraid of the kick, and she was confident. She's a shooter. She wasn't afraid of the recoil. You have to understand that recoil, and matter of fact, almost lean into the gun. That will help your accuracy. And the number one thing, sight in at the range. How long has it been since you sighted in? Has the gun been riding around in the back of the truck? Did you travel to a different elevation or location? You need to sight in, because the worst thing you have that's with you if you deer hunt, the worst thing you have is lack of confidence. You must be absolutely sure that your shot is perfect. And with that Cascade centerfire CVA Cascade that Tanya Higgins used during the last show that we did down at the Big R Farms down in Usella, Georgia, she took that nice whitetail with a heart shot at 120 yards. Perfectly done. Because just about 3 hours prior to that, she sighted in. It was perfect. And that's how that was accomplished. 45 after the hour. What would you like to discuss now? Did we talk about the best big bass bait for the wintertime? We did during the first hour, and I'm not afraid to repeat it. To O'Neill, the perfect big bass, the best big bass bait is a crawfish imitation, whether it's a crankbait done slowly or it's a hair or rubber skirted jig. My favorite jig is a, oh my goodness, what's the name of that? I'll get to it in a minute. It's made in Augusta, Georgia. But I'll get to it in a minute. My brain's gone blank. It's long rubber skirted, and it has weights or clickers next to the jig head. And that a crawfish makes a sound as he travels. And he eats the vegetation, the mold and the decaying matter along the limbs of standing trees and blowdowns and weed lines. That's how he feeds. But why is the crawfish such a great bait during this time of year? Because he's been in a burrow underground with the egg in the mud, little muddy towers, and that's where the eggs have been, along with the stomach of the female. And now it's this time of year that the crawfish is mature. And at the same time, other live baits, the brim, the small bass, and other critters like that, in the cold water, they've hunkered down. They aren't active. They're not moving around like they did. So the bass doesn't have that to choose from, but he certainly does the crawfish. And so when you make your cast into a piece of brush, a blowdown, a standing tree, one of the mistakes I see people make, and I recommend is that once you cast your hair jig or your rubber skirted jig into there, then don't be in a hurry to get it out. If you pull it up and it bumps a limb, don't jump it over the limb. If it's the last limb that you're used to hitting, drop it back down into the tree again. Swim it back up to the limb. Drop it back down into the brush again. Can you imagine? Here's this limb, and here's the crawfish imitation that's over a limb, and here's the bass below it. And he sees this, and he's attracted to that from you doing it 3 or 4 times. Then he reaches out and bites it, and he weighs 6 pounds, and you just caught him. That sounds okay to me. But, lastly, and then I'll shut up about it, if you are not an adept or have not done much of the big bass bait usage, that being imitation jigs, rubber skirted or hair jig, the way you learn to do that is not, I think I'll try this for an hour because I heard that little Irishman on radio say something about using a jig for the wintertime. The water temperature right now in major reservoirs is about 57 degrees and falling. In ponds, it's colder than that. Don't say, I'll try this for an hour and see if it works. No. Try it for a day or 2 to see if it works. And then you can congratulate me later for tuning you in to a hair jig. And I learned that from somebody with real credentials. Davey Height, BASS champion and angler of the year. So now, let's change directions for a moment. The favorite part of the program. It's called the Medal of Honor Tribute.
Honor, courage, and strength of character. These qualities are embodied by the recipients of the Medal of Honor. Now let's recognize this week's Medal of Honor recipient on O'Neill Outside.
Henry F. Warner, Medal of Honor recipient. This is November the 30th, 2019. He was a corporal in the Army, and he was in Belgium in 1944. He was serving as an anti-tank gunner and he was a major factor in stopping enemy tanks during heavy attacks against the battalion. In the first attack, the enemy tank succeeded in penetrating parts of the line, and Corporal Warner, disregarding the concentrated cannon and machine gun fire from 2 tanks bearing down on him, ignoring that imminent danger of being overrun by the infantry moving under tank cover, he destroyed the first tank and scored a direct hit and deadly hit upon the second tank. A third tank approached to within 5 yards of his position while he was attempting to clear a jammed breech lock. Jumping from his gun pit, he engaged a pistol duel with a tank commander standing in the turret, and he killed him and forced the tank to withdraw. Following a day and night mortar barrages from the Germans and numerous infantry attacks, she struck a great force on the early morning. They faced a great force in the early morning of the 21st. Sometimes I have a hard time getting through this. I'm sorry. Seeing a German tank looming out of the mist and heading toward his position, Corporal Warner scored a direct hit. Disregarding his injuries, he endeavored to finish the loading and again fire at the tank, whose motor was still now aflame, when a second machine gun burst killed him. Corporal Warner's gallantry, at the risk of a life and beyond the call of duty, contributed materially to the successful defense against the enemy attacks. Henry F. Warner, U.S. Army Corporal, died in Belgium, 1944. 52 after the hour right now. This is O'Neill with O'Neill Outside, and we do appreciate your calls every Saturday from Henry and from Mac and Milton and all you guys, even from Dallas, Texas today. We hope you enjoy discussing the outdoors. This is not sports as per se. It's not football, not baseball, and it certainly and it never will be political, with the exception of the following. Preview next week, next Saturday morning. Be sure and tune in, because we're going to talk about global warming. How does it occur? How often has it occurred before? And whether we should be alarmed. Now, not politically, and whether we should be alarmed now because the temperature appears to be rising. So get yourself together. We're going to talk about that next week for some very good reasons. This is O'Neill. We have another call to get to. When we return, I'll be back. Okay, 57 after the hour. We're closing out the show, but let's talk to Jason. Calling from Marietta, Georgia. Good morning, Jason. How are you?
Good morning, O'Neill. How are you, bud?
Just fine, thank you.
Hey, I know your show's almost over. I just want to tell you, I've called a whole bunch over the years. I love listening to the show. I've just never really been into hunting or fishing, or I'd rather be in the woods with a camera.
There you go.
That in mind, I fully understand the need for hunters, and my family is all about it. And nobody listens to I can't get them to listen to it. I've been telling them for years. So this Thanksgiving, I'm sitting there at the table, and they're talking about hunting and stuff, and how they haven't gotten anything this year. And I asked my dad. I said, "Well, how close do you hunt to the truck?" "Oh, about 20 yards." I said, "Well, you need to go deeper into the woods and let the other hunters drive the deer into you." "Oh, absolutely. I never thought of that." And, it's fun to start barking out all this advice that I hear on your show, and here I am never, they're "Oh, I can't wait to get a buck that's good eating." So, it'd be a whole lot better eating if you'd get a doe. If you want a trophy, indeed. Get a buck. But, they look at me like I've got bats flying out of my head. But anyway, I appreciate your show. Welcome back. And it's been a pleasure all these years. And thanks for doing the Medal of Honor tribute, by the way. That means a lot.
Thank you very much.
My grandfather was 7th Beach Battalion in World War II, and it'd mean a lot to him if he was still with us.
Oh, boy. Well, it sounds like you had a wonderful Thanksgiving.
Oh, yes, sir.
And you talked about some great subjects, and I appreciate the kind compliments and the things that you said about the program to your family. I really do appreciate that.
Yes, sir.
You bet. Call again next week earlier, and we'll chat about it.
Absolutely.
I like to use a camera, too. See you later. All right, this is O'Neill. Let me close out the program. You know what we're going to talk about next week, global warming. Let me end it with this. The old dreams were good dreams. They didn't all work out, but I'm glad I had them. See you next week, everybody.
I once asked a mighty hunter, coming home from the field, how he came to possess such mighty hunting and fishing skill. He said, I'll tell you a secret, son. I learned everything I know from listening to O'Neill Outside on my radio. O'Neill, O'Neill.